When you scroll through Instagram, you're often seeing a lot of things that are basically ads. And sometimes they're not necessarily flagged as ads. They usually come in the form of pretty attractive people that are known as influencers. Now, in and of itself, not a big deal, except if you've been following the news recently, there was a very big, very disastrous music festival by the name of Fyre Festival, where it started with a bunch of really hot supermodels advertising what was supposed to be this extremely glamorous festival. What actually happened was a complete and total disaster. And now some of those supermodels, we're talking about the biggest models in the world, have been embroiled in legal proceedings as the disaster that is Fyre Festival just continues to unfold. The question is, how much responsibility do influencers have when something goes awry? And also, should they be flagging it as well? We are joined here in studio by Ben Grubb, who is a technology writer whose work you can see in The Age, The Sydney Morning Herald, Crikey, etc. He also has amazing glasses. And we have Ariel Bogle, a technology reporter with the ABC Science Unit. Ariel, should we be suing Kendall Jenner? Please tell me.
Good question, Mark.
Thank you.
Kendall Jenner could be sued for a range of things, but I'm not sure if Fyre Festival exactly is one of them. It's a complicated case here. So the involvement of these supermodels specifically was before the festival as part of their advertising drive. The founder of the Fyre Festival, Billy McFarland, now in jail for fraud, flew out, half a dozen models, top models, Victoria's Secret models, to somewhere in the Bahamas, filmed them playing around in boats, filmed them swimming at the beach, put that footage on his website, on Instagram, and also later down the track got those models who have extremely popular Instagram accounts to post this orange tile kind of advertising the launch of the festival and some other things. So the idea here is, should they have known that it was going to be a disaster? And how could they do that?
On the issue of the Kendall Jenner and what like that, where do you stand on that?
I think that there's definitely like a moral responsibility, surely, for people to disclose whether they're getting paid for talking about what they are talking about. There is a few like accepted norms though. Like, for example, if you watch like the Australian Open and someone's wearing like a Nike branded top or an Adidas branded top, one would assume that there might be a deal there. Or, when you watch movies and like the Apple logo is covered up with sticky tape, and this is kind of the opposite response where they're not getting paid by the company, therefore they're going to cover up the fact. So like, I think, we've kind of come to accept that people have like brand deals in sports and they kind of go undisclosed. Sometimes it's like overt and, they're doing interviews with journalists and they say, I've been doing a lot of work with this brand or whatever. I don't know if you remember, but way back in like, I think it was 2012, a lot of celebrities in Australia, this was just like on the verge when Instagram was kind of coming out, and Twitter as well was getting bigger, were tweeting about Kangaroo Island. Like, you had people like Matt Moran and various others who were just not disclosing the fact that they were getting paid to promote it. And back then, Australia's competition regulator said that it was best practice to disclose the fact that you were getting paid, but it wasn't necessarily something you had to do by the law. So I would like to see some changes. Already in the UK, the regulator there has, I think, got about 16 or 19 or so celebrities, including Rita Ora and Ellie Goulding, to agree to start disclosing a few things.
Why would they agree to it? Like, what's in their interest there?
I guess their reputation.
Being seen as above board.
Okay.
And that's where the carrot and stick approach kind of, name and shame them. Maybe that, and why not do that? If it's not illegal or illicit to do these things, then why not have like a public register of like people who have failed to disclose? Like, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And I would be supportive of something like that, at least in the interim while we figure out how to police this. And that's the other thing. There are hundreds of thousands of Instagram influencers. People, I don't know, people over 10,000, that's when you start to get brand deals.
Well, I think there's a lot going on here, like just to think about Fyre Festival specifically and those specific models that were flown out. So there is suing, like some people want them sort of sued and shamed for promoting something that was ultimately a disaster and a money sink and potentially a criminal fraud for a lot of people. But did they know about that? And so were they misleading when they promoted it on the Instagram accounts? So in Australia, the ACCC says, yes, if you post things are misleading as a form of advertising on social media, you may be in breach of Australian consumer law. That's one thing. Separately, there's this idea of whether they did disclose that their posts were an ad that they were getting paid for, or paid for in trips, or paid for in free gear. That's a bit grayer here in Australia. The Australian Association of National Advertisers does have like a code of conduct, but it's a self-regulatory kind of code of conduct that says it must be clear when something's an ad and when it's not. So if you're posting something like just a screenshot of a Vegemite ad and it's so clearly an ad by all the normal indicators,
It's accepted.
It's accepted.
Because it's commonly understood to be an ad.
But if it's Bella Hadid saying, come to Fyre Festival, I'm going to be there and it's going to be sick, you should have
Great
hashtag
impression,
ad
by the way.
or...
Absolutely spot on impression.
Thanks, mate. And Instagram also has new ways of tagging content as sponsored by a certain brand. So there's a lot there. There's whether it was misleading, and that might be an actual separate issue from whether it was disclosed as an ad in the first place.
Ben, the platforms, I mean, Instagram being the major one here, they have a little tab up in the corner when you want to post something. You can put your location. You can also put if it's a paid partnership. But is that enough? Do you think the platforms should be doing more?
I think that the platforms could be doing more, and it might even be in their best interest to do more. I mean, they could be taking a cut of some of the revenue that is being made by these influencers. And, they do have struggling business models at the moment. A lot of them don't actually make any money from the platform, or you look at Twitter and it's kind of been on the down revenue-wise.
Does Instagram make money? Is Instagram profitable, or is it hard to...
Well, because it's owned by Facebook.
Facebook's a bit hard to say, right?
It's
Yeah.
folded in there.
Yeah. Somebody somewhere is making money. We just don't know how much.
Exactly. So I think that they could be doing more, and it's easy to say they could be doing more. I mean, they've, as you said, they've got this paid partnership thing where you can, proactively go in there and add that as something that you want to disclose. But a lot of people are reverting to putting like the hashtag ad or SponCon or whatever, but then they're adding it as like the last hashtag in this long list of, hashtags that are buried, below hundreds of others. But it's interesting, like when surveyed last year, a third of brands admitted that they don't disclose paid partnerships with influencers. And there's various other surveys that where a group of 4,000 consumers in the UK, France and Germany, which was commissioned by a marketing firm, found that nearly half fatigued by the bombardment of ads on social media. I mean, I don't know if you've seen like the teeth whitening ones. Like, there's so many of them. Like I guess... Yeah, like people are kind of, I think, getting fed up, and they will unfollow you if they believe that you're not. I think they'll unfollow you as an Instagram influencer if you do promote something and then you don't disclose it. So it's actually in your best interest as the influencer to disclose.
It's interesting that you say that, because I follow like way too many like super fit CrossFit athletes, so I can feel bad about my body. And one of the things,
not you?
No, it's not me. But that one of the things that I find really fascinating about that is obviously those guys and girls are incredible engines to sell products around wellness and fitness and whatnot. But often, as an influencer, what you're looking to do is create content that doesn't feel like an ad, because that's its real value. And so what you're talking about is where people feel like they've got too many ads coming at them and then they unfollow them. But actually, if that content is good, if it feels authentic, it should not feel like an ad. And therefore, there's an incentive to make it not feel like an ad. And I'm wondering how those ideas get squared, right? Because if you're as an influencer, what you want to be doing is making things that don't feel like an ad, because the moment it feels like an ad, it sort of loses. The brand might as well have gone off and made an ad, right? So I guess when it comes down to that, where is the line at which you become uncomfortable with content? Like, is the line that you can't identify that it's an ad, or is the line that the product itself is sort of obviously an ad?
It's very hard to get a good idea of exactly what is valuable in the influencer economy. You ask one person in the advertising industry and they say, influencer marketing is done. All consumers are now suspicious that people are only talking about products, wearing products in their Instagram posts because they got that product for free or they got paid for it. On the other hand, some people see it as the only way to get through to teenagers and young people through influencers. And, the fact that Kendall Jenner can get $250,000 for advertising Fyre Festival, that's her rumoured fee, shows that someone's willing to pay that. But I think there is a issue here, both from the platforms and the brands, that they don't want these influencer ads to become ostentatious. Instagram already has ads. When you scroll through Instagram, maybe every 6 posts or so is a paid ad. You can see it's an ad. Whereas it's not in their interest to make influencer content that is sponsored look incredibly so, because then Instagram is just an ad delivery service. And look, it's halfway there already.
Yeah.
And as soon as it loses that authenticity and it loses that community feeling, then it becomes a social media platform whose influence is on the wane.
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that, because I feel like the sorts of things that get advertised to me through influencers are such low stakes products. Like it's fashion, it's clothes, it's stuff where you don't attach, like I literally don't attach the tag of evil capitalism to it, because it's like, well, I might like that. And I think maybe it speaks to the category of products that get sold on Instagram. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that health thing, you saying you follow a bunch of CrossFit people.
It's so bad for my
you must
self-esteem.
So I feel like there's got to be a showdown at some point about the products that are being advertised for health.
Yeah.
Because some of those supplements are, dodgy, to say the least, and they're being promoted by people about their effects on their fitness. That seems like at some point it could fall afoul of the Australian consumer protection laws.
If you're doing tea,
fit
tea
tummy
that is
teas, weight loss
That's
teas.
where Kendall, I think, got into trouble.
Exactly. If there's a kid that's got 50,000 followers and they're getting some free merch from Bonds or something, yeah.
In my world, they seem to be paid in underwear, but as I keep telling them,
I think we learned a lot about who you follow.
You can't buy food with underwear,
no,
can you?
But I'm less forgiving of the health.
I mean, have you tried?
But it's interesting. So in terms of people's reaction, there was another study. So in 2017, there was a paper, the University of Georgia and other researchers, and they found that Instagram users reacted more negatively to clearly labelled ads and were less likely to share the post.
Yeah, right.
So, that kind of supports what you're talking about here. But I still think that disclosure is important, but the content that you're creating, you can do it in a way in which people are still going to look at it and not go, oh, this is blatant. They do an ad that suits your, that fits your feed.
Oh, I just want to mention too, because it reminded me in the Fyre Festival documentary, I know we make a lot of fun of influencers and this whole sort of grey economy floating beneath the surface of one of the world's most popular social media apps. But I think there is interest in having rules here, not just for us, but also for them. Like when I watched the Fyre Festival documentary and saw the footage of all those models in the Bahamas, on one hand, you're like, jealous. These are beautiful women in the Bahamas and they seem to be having an okay time. But there was other footage of them sort of at night, just with hoodies on, on the beach with these guys who had hired them to come out there, trying to make them drink, trying to make them swim.
Yeah.
It just felt like their modelling agencies or their agents should have done some more research into the people that they were sending these models to hang out with in the Bahamas. And those are high-powered women with big bank accounts and big agents. So you can only imagine what's happening with small influencers, younger influencers, and the kind of exploitation that might be happening.
Great point. All right, there is lots more of this in the podcast of Download the Show. We're also talking about sex and robots because, why wouldn't you? You can find it right now on whichever podcasting app you use, and I will catch you next time.